Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rise Factor. I am your host, Sarah, and today I have the wonderful, wonderful Catherine Russell joining me from MOVABLE. Thank you so much for being here, Catherine. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
I love that you put your hand up as a previous Rise Up participant, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm going to come on and join me." So I'm really glad for you to be here and to just shine some spotlight into your journey and your history and what you're doing now. So,
Yep.
Catherine, for those that may not know you, can you
Mhm.
tell us or describe who you are and what lights you up?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in Sydney. Am from a big family, and I moved up to Newcastle about 8 years ago. Still very much involved with my family and friends in Sydney, but have established a really good network of friends up here in Newcastle too. I feel very much like a local. Lockdown life helped that happen because we weren't allowed to kind of go back to Sydney for a period of time. My spare time and my me time is definitely spent with my family and friends. That's kind of what keeps me going and keeps me recharged each weekend and during the week where I can fit it in.
I love that. I love that. It's a bit of a insight into who you are and outside of work. So I want to let's go back to the beginnings. Okay.
Yeah,
So you've been in the industry now, I think over 13 years, is that right?
yeah, yeah.
What drew you to property management?
So, first of all, it was something that I'd always kind of heard about because a very close friend of mine actually owns their own real estate business in Sydney. And just hearing how much interaction she had with people was something that I really loved the idea of. Always had positive interactions myself in any transactions we had in purchasing property. So, an opportunity came up to step into, I guess, an introductory role where there was a bit of marketing and a bit of property management, a small business that was sort of growing in Sydney, and it really exposed me to sort of that sales marketing side, but also the property management side of the business. And that's where I found, I guess, my biggest interest was over there with the people, and helping people to find homes, helping people to get great like tenants in their investment properties. And an opportunity then came up to step into being a property manager. And I took that because I was really excited to be able to get stuck in and help people to, I guess, look after their property as a tenant, making themselves feel at home, but also making sure that it's in the best interest of also for that investor. And then I guess any property manager would know it opens you up to a world of tradies that you end up speaking to every single day, about different properties, different scenarios, and there was just so much more, I guess, relationship building than I realised. Just from doing the menial tasks I was doing to then actually having responsibility for the portfolio.
Mm. And then let's go into the evolvement because you've made the leap from PM to BDM. So what
Yeah.
prompted the change?
So when I first moved to Newcastle, I started working with someone who is now one of my dearest friends. And she was like, okay, I definitely want you for your property management, but I want you to help me grow this business. And I was like, right, okay, sure. Let's see how that goes. I'd worked alongside some of Sydney's best BDMs and really learnt a lot from them because I wanted to understand their process and what my landlords knew coming into my portfolio. So I kind of reached out to them and lent on them a lot for ideas. And I guess the biggest thing was getting into networking opportunities and local events in Newcastle and meeting people who needed our help and we needed their help. So that reciprocal relationship.
Mhm.
We grew the business, and each time we kind of set a new goal, it was really exciting, but scared the crap out of me, to be honest. And I was like, okay, well, we can only try. And, sure enough, we were just hitting those, self-set targets. And then, we got to a point where the business kind of outgrew what we had the capacity to do. And that's how we ended up joining forces with MOVABLE.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So how did you know that going into the BDM space was the right move for you, Catherine?
To be honest, I definitely doubted myself, which is probably just part of my personality and who I am.
Mm.
I knew that the relationships that I was building with people and that new business cycle was constantly limited because I was still managing a portfolio.
Mm.
And so I really wanted to take the leap to be able to just focus on, still having these relationships with people, but helping them to grow their investment portfolio and getting more involved in being able to give them recommendations and assessments on the different properties they're looking at, on perhaps where they're planning to invest next and what that potential return would look like. What does that suburb look like? Who lives there? Like really getting to, getting to the nitty gritty of each property with them, which I didn't have that opportunity to do before, but I knew it was something that really interested me.
Mm. Yeah. And did you have some perceptions about the BDM role before you stepped into it? And then you're like, oh, the reality, and how that compared to the perceptions that you had?
Yeah, for sure. So I thought I'm going to miss my tenants and my landlords and chatting to my tradies each day and just that like relationship side of things. I love a chat. Always with purpose, obviously, because you're doing a job at the end of the day. But
Yeah.
I really thought that I would miss that so much. And I was nervous as well that I would be kind of like, um, a lone wolf wandering around doing my thing and having to really stand on my own 2 feet. And absolutely, that is a huge part of our job. But I was really surprised at the network and the community that there is for BDMs. And I mean, even connecting with you through the program, I've got people in other states that I talk to and, I encourage them and celebrate their wins, and they certainly reach out and help support me. And then even local BDMs in the Newcastle area, it's such an amazing community that I just didn't expect
Mm.
that would be there. And then obviously that's, more relationship building and more conversations and doing the things that I love doing.
Yeah. So has there been a conversation that you've had that's been like a breakthrough moment that has cemented, yes, I'm in the right place as a BDM?
Yeah, I definitely feel that. So, a tenant that I put into one of our properties years ago would kind of chat with me about, like, when I'd go for routine inspections, about how, oh, I'm never going to be able to buy, I'm never going to be able to do this. And I, a few years ago connected them with a mortgage broker who gave them some advice and, didn't really hear from them again. And then this year they called me and were like, we're finally buying a place. We don't want to move, but we want you to manage it. And I was like, okay. And they're like, what do we do about this? And they had all these questions for me. And we were kind of able to talk through the process and potentially what kind of tenants they might get and where the market sits and all those kinds of things. And once we tenanted that property, I realized we'd really done a full circle. And it wasn't a question of, I've known you for a long time. What discounts can you get me? Or, how cheap are you compared to everybody else? It was, we know you and we just want you to manage and look after our investment property, and I think that side of that BDM process just made it full circle for me to go from being their property manager to then now helping them with their investment portfolio.
Yeah. You definitely are a relationship first kind of person, and getting to know you, intimately over a couple of months. I absolutely love that about you. But Catherine, some people would argue that business development is more about the sales over the relationships. What would you say to that?
So there's definitely an element of sales for sure. And I think that having confidence in yourself, for me, having a relationship with someone first means that I've got the confidence behind me to kind of close that transaction. But at the same time, there's constantly other things happening in the background. It could be that someone's called into the office and they need me to talk to them on the phone, and I'll have a chat with them. But even though I don't know them and I've not necessarily met them in person before, I'm still wanting to know who they are so that I can make sure that I can help them in the way that suits them best.
Mm-hmm.
So that is still selling our services to them and, signing them up for business, which at the end of the day is the whole purpose of what we are trying to achieve. But you're still getting to know them and sharing a little bit about yourself at the same time.
Yeah. I really love that response, because how I feel about the role. And,
Yeah.
initially taught that it was just sales, sales, sales. And, you get one person, you have to move on to the next. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's all well and good, but we want to look at retention and also to be able to onboard that client in the best possible way for our property management team to nurture that
Yeah.
relationship as well and to take some of that retention nurturing off the BDM. So I know that Movable is such a values driven brand. How have you found alignment between your approach being like that relationship led, business development role and the company's vision for growth?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, being in a town like Newcastle, word of mouth and referrals, recommendations, people talk at, sport on the weekends, at the gym, the local cafe. And I know that, the foundations of our business really value the importance of those relationships to then create opportunity for the business. And so I think that's where we definitely align both in my personal value and their business value is that seeing that, each person is an individual and how can we look after them. And I know it's so often said, we offer a personalized service, but, listening to your clients and sending them emails and shooting through a text because that's their preference, or giving them a phone call after you've sent them an email to make sure that they've got everything across the line. That's personalized service that we genuinely do, whether it's through, property management, our commercial or our sales team. It's something that across the board, everybody's striving to achieve. And we definitely have aligned in that way because it means that I get to do what I love to do, but it's also recognition or seen as doing my job.
Yeah, that's really
Which,
beautiful.
isn't always the case in our industry.
Yeah, 100%.
Relationships aren't valued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have definitely been on a personal growth journey as well since stepping into, the BDM. So
Yeah.
what does that look like for you?
So I think one of the biggest things for me was well, we did it through the course. It was one of the first things we did was looking at yourself. And I think for me, I was like, right, I want to, be able to learn some tactics as a BDM, and I want to learn, what I need to do to like be able to do this full time. And the first thing that we did was, well, who are you and what's important to you and what makes sense to you? And then making sure that I'm approaching each day and each week and just my calendar in general, making sure it's reflecting who I am, and that's what's then leading to success in the role.
I love that. And
And that was surprising for me. I didn't
yeah,
think
no,
anything about me.
that's great. It's great that, you've acknowledged that that kind of work has helped you into stepping into this BDM space. So, Catherine, what does success look like for you?
So I think for me, it's definitely in just the past week alone, having people reach out to me because they've been given my details by someone else, or someone called me and their conveyancer had said, oh, I was told that you're the guru and I've got some questions because we've got a tenancy in place and I don't know what to do. And I just sat and chatted on the phone for 15 minutes, and to them that felt like such a huge chunk of my time. It was 15 minutes, but it's then going to feed onto, it turns out that he actually is a mortgage broker, and he's asked if he can introduce me to a couple of his clients, that he's got deals happening that are a little bit questionable as well. So, that's, I guess, what that success has then looked like, because I am being myself. So it's not a performance. You can call me and I'll pick up the phone and say, hello, I don't know who you are, but you're going to get the same thing as if I'd had an intro beforehand and I knew what we were going to talk about.
Yeah, that's what it's about, right? We want to
Yeah.
yeah, and I guess this goes back to, having those relationships with people, understanding them, getting to know them, that opens up more doors and opportunities for you, which, you're doing so well at. What are you excited about right now?
So right now I'm excited to kind of, coming to the end of a month and celebrating what you've achieved is great, but I'm actually excited to plan for August, and plan on for September, which is spring. So, there, I guess, milestones that I had in the back of my mind after finishing the Rise program that, things I wanted to achieve before we got to spring. So being able to look and go, right, August is my month to finish any of those goals that I haven't quite achieved, but also then to be able to reset and go, what else am I going to achieve between, realistically the start of spring and Christmas time?
Hmm.
Because it's going to go so quickly, as it always does. It's going to be full of so many things that we don't even know are going to happen.
Yeah.
So being able to plan and be ready for that, that's definitely something I'm excited about.
Yeah. And I think, Catherine, that's what makes you, so on top of your field and in your spaces that you are already planning and preempting for the end of the year, right? And looking ahead rather than just being reactive into, okay, well, next month, and we just deal with what happens next month. You're actually taking
Yeah.
control of your success. If you could whisper one
Mm-hmm.
thing to the version of yourself now, what would you say to her?
I think I would say keep believing in yourself, but let yourself grow and evolve.
Mm,
Because I think that, from when I first stepped into the role, or when I first became a property manager, what I thought I would need to be was totally different to who I became. Then stepping into BDM, I've definitely evolved and changed. And then, I've got to allow myself to keep letting the change and the growth happen, because then that's how the success and the growth in my results will continue to happen.
hmm. Yeah. So what, for any BDMs listening right now and, whether they're feeling a bit stuck or stagnant or, they don't have the motivation or the confidence to look at, the rest of the year, what would your advice be to them, Catherine?
I'd say pick two things. Pick two things that either you have already tried to achieve yourself but you haven't quite got there, or two things that perhaps a mentor or someone out there is doing that you really want to do. Just pick two, concentrate on them, make a plan, work towards trying to achieve those two things, and then see what happens next.
Yeah. So what are your two things? So, for BDMs listening, they go, okay, well, I don't know what those two things are. Would love to know what your next focus is going to be to help you get to that next level for your growth and success.
Yeah, so I have got some established networking groups that I'm part of around Newcastle. One of the things I want to try and do is get into others, like get out there and spend time in other, out of my comfort zone, basically, in other events, in other catch ups. It's 2 hours or 3 hours of your time. And I just want to be able to commit to going to, one or two a month that aren't what I would normally do, and getting to meet new people and, yeah, put myself out there in that respect. And then the other thing that's something that I had, really wanted to try and do, which took me time to sort of build, I guess, a bit of a catalogue to be able to do sort of a focus on some suburbs
Mhm.
and spotlight some suburbs. And it seems like it's something that's really obvious that's done in our industry all the time, but I just wanted to do it from me. So
Mhm.
it's kind of got my take on, when I visited this suburb, who I've met, what I've got out of it. And it's something that I've sort of been working on to evolve, and I just really want to be able to implement that.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And, when we're looking at those things, and one of the topics that we covered in Rise is influencing your marketplace. And so I think that's really great that, you're taking that next step to have your lens and perspective on those suburbs and sharing, perhaps the highlights, perhaps not so much the highlights. Because, I remember going back to a BDM, there was some suburbs that were really great, but there were some streets that wouldn't perform as well as certain other streets in that same suburb,
Yeah.
simply because it could be close to power lines, not in the school zones, and I think that's when, as a BDM, you've got that real advantage to be able to educate future landlords who are buying these markets. Because what we're seeing, and I think from BDMs everywhere around Australia, is right now, or even New Zealand, your landlords who are buying now or retain their properties, we've kind of gone through the trenches. Like, these are serious landlords now. We're not
Yeah.
having, some landlords who have just accidentally bought a property, that they're having to really treat it as a business in terms of their future plan, right? So, and I think that is a really big opportunity for BDMs to acknowledge that, first of all, going, okay, well, these landlords that I'm talking to, they mean business, right?
Yeah.
They're obviously got a plan in place, or perhaps they're relying on you to have that plan in place. So the fact that you're focusing on strategically helping educate your either current landlords or future landlords, I think is brilliant. And I think, that's one tangible thing that BDMs can do right now as well. Obviously, don't copy Catherine, make it your own. That's what it's about, making it
Yeah.
your own. Um,
Yeah.
and however that looks like. But I think you can get so fun and creative with it. And, remembering, I've seen the content that you and Movable have been putting out now, and it definitely is, on brand. And that's what I love is you guys are very clear and focused on your values and your brand, which is really what I love. So, Catherine, what's one thing on your vision board that you might not have ticked off yet, but you definitely want to celebrate at the end of the year so we can support you through that?
Yeah, okay. So I definitely have one that may or may not be in my control,
Mhm.
but we like currently doing building at home and an extension, and I really want to be in there for Christmas.
Okay. Let's
So
get
I
a
would
push on
love
those
to
builders.
share on my socials a Christmas tree in the new living space.
Uh-huh.
We could be sitting on the floor, who knows? But
Yeah.
that's something I would love to achieve this year.
All right. Well, we are manifesting that happens for you. Yeah, not necessarily in your control, but hopefully
Yeah.
we can just put it out there to the universe. Builders, pick up your game. Let's,
100%. Rain, please go away.
yeah, please stop raining.
Yeah.
I can already visual. I just had this image in my head of just you sitting on your floor with the Christmas tree.
Probably.
So
Even
that's
if it's out,
amazing.
we do have a slab. So there's a slab. So there's definitely going to be somewhere to put the tree, but it would be awesome if there was walls
Yeah.
around the slab. So
All right. We need some walls.
yeah.
I think, really great takeaways today, Catherine, and a really great reflection on, some BDMs who perhaps are transitioning or want to transition from a property manager to a BDM. And look, a lot of people that have come on have been similar. They've done the same thing. So,
Mhm.
great leadership by you. And I love that you've got some tactical focus on the rest of the year and your journey ahead. So I just want to say a big thank you for coming on, sharing your journey, showing up, right? I know it's not always easy to,
Yeah.
to come on for these things, and just a massive well done on your growth this year.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for your support and encouragement because I definitely wouldn't have believed in myself or pushed myself to achieve things without your guidance, but also your encouragement and belief that I could do it. So thank you very much.
Pleasure. Always in your corner, lovely.
Thank
And for
you.
those that would like to reach out, perhaps, connect with you and have you part of their community and network,
Yep.
what's the best place to reach you?
So I'm on LinkedIn
Mhm.
and also socials. But yeah, give me a call, send me a text. I'm pretty much across all of it. I'm
Yeah.
happy to communicate. So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, please make sure BDMs, if you'd love to have a chat with Catherine, that you reach out. That's what it's about is, connecting and broadening our networks as well. Catherine, thank you so much again for joining us. And as always, BDMs, keep rising.